I can reach the stars, I pull one down for you, shine it on my heart, so you could see the truth, and let love inside, then bring me to you. But for now I heard I dream that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love would really something good, baby, if I could change the world.
Congratulations to Town Hall Europe. I'm very glad that finally the project starts.
You're making history today, and I think you know it.
This new initiative emphasizes yet again your legitimate desire to contribute to an open and constructive dialogue between leaders and citizens from all over the world.
You have succeeded in integrating innovative technology into a project that will benefit and influence the performance of many European projects and the daily lives of ordinary people.
Listening to different voices, combining and connecting them allows adaptive creativity and change to emerge through interactions.
We have to strengthen the future generations of young Europeans.
Building bridges rather than putting up walls.
Women and men, any mother tongue and religion, should feel part of the motion.
Because we have to find a way to go out of our bubble.
A desire to take on the biggest challenges with positive solutions.
Empower women and minorities and all sorts of groups.
New generation are more agile and outspoken than before and are more willing to be the positive change they are willing to see.
In which Europe do we want to live? Which role can it play in the world?
The Leadership Center must focus on that.
A place where we can discuss and help grow a well-being economy for all.
If we do that, I can assure you that things in Europe will look very different.
I hope you will bring wonderful ideas and people together to make Europe a better place.
I look forward to exchanging ideas, learning from others, and seeing all that develops from this beautiful endeavor.
And you know, we are here for everything that you need.
And we wish you a very happy evening.
So guys, well done, and go get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you. Welcome to Town Hall Europe, the Davignon Center for New Leadership. So Town Hall Europe is a meeting place between decision makers and citizens. We'll come back to the meaning of the word Davignon, or experienced millennial. And we want to say something about new leadership. New leadership for us means different tools and capacity building that is needed that are needed to create a better set of leaders for today's world. But new leadership also means responsible citizenship, because I think we have to continue to stimulate and let blossom the various initiatives, citizenship initiatives that at the moment take place everywhere, and I think all of us have a responsibility in our communities. Welcome in any case to our president, Etienne Davignon, some of his family and friends. Big welcome also to the number of women here and the women's networks present here. Thank you very much for coming. We're very delighted that over 1,000 people, in fact, have registered to be with us this week, because we have a whole series of events this week. Town Hall Europe, the original name, ladies and gentlemen, was European Town Hall, and we decided not to keep that because the abbreviation of that was ET. Even if, after some reflection, we thought extraterrestrial is not completely dissimilar from what we are trying to do here, in the sense that we want to do something different. We are doing something a bit strange, I think. We're doing something hybrid, something that cannot be put on the wall. I hope this will, that we can prove that our technical capabilities do continue to function. Thank you. But we want to do something different, and I give a few examples. We want to, on the one hand, this is an event space. On the other hand, we want to work around leadership, contents-driven. This is a place that wants to be open to political leaders, to business chiefs, but also to NGOs and citizens. We're very proud to be in Belgium and in Brussels, but of course also thanks to the technology and the remote connectivity, we want to link to the rest of the world, basically. Welcome to all our young leaders, distant in any case. We want to kind of bring together different points of view and political convictions, perhaps except for some of the extremist voices. And we want to bring together younger voices as well as more experienced ones. So our genuine belief is really that to address today's challenges, one needs this kind of multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary approach. And we were very happy to receive yesterday a nice letter from Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, who basically wrote to us, perhaps the most precious and increasingly scarce resource in our world today is dialogue. I welcome your focus on bringing people together to broaden understanding, share ideas, and find common ground. So how do we at Town Hall Europe want to do that? And how can you help us? Because obviously we cannot do this on our own. So here I am with my cap on of CAO, or the Chief Advertising Officer of Town Hall Europe. First small suggestion, rent the venue. It's a beautiful venue. It has all you need. It's well located, etc. But also you will be contributing to covering the costs, which then we can use to develop some of the leadership and citizenship initiatives that we absolutely want to develop. Support those leadership initiatives as well, whether it's about mentoring, it's about training programs, all kinds of discussions. Obviously, all support and suggestions are much welcome. And last but not least, I want to announce that Friends of Europe is going to start organizing on Fridays, Funky Fridays. So it would be, the whole idea, we're still contemplating about what funky really means in practice, but it's a good start, so we'll see where we end up. But the concept is to do something different, to try to get people involved from outside the bubble, and to do, a number of different things, be an open, collaborative space, basically. So some of the keywords in that respect are, apart from this open space collaborative, capacity building, authentic voices, leadership tools and knowledge, sustainability, fairness, that kind of stuff. So anybody who's interested to work with us on that, let us know, contact any of the colleagues here, leave your business cards, and we'd be delighted to work with you. A final word on this room, which I hope you like. Even if, and I've mentioned it yesterday as well, I have to admit, we cannot be held responsible for the kind of golden looks in the main hall. That's not our choice and it's not our preference, I have to admit. But other than that, we're very happy to be in this sustainable building. And a lot of work has really got into it, which obviously we have not been able to do on our own. So we're now going to thank a number of people, but there's so many people to be thanked that we've basically put it in a small clip. Roughly speaking, there's a number of categories. The first category is the members of our circle of friends. If you ask yourself today, is it possible to find a number of people, and in this case 30 people, crazy enough to put a bit of money in some vague idea? Well, the answer is yes. So we're very grateful to those people from the bottom of our heart. And we were very delighted also to see that Jacques Delors was one of the first persons to commit, and we were very proud of that. Thanks to the partners of tonight's evening. So for the audiovisual services, Microson, and for the catering, it's tonight Food Stories. And then we would like to show a clip with the making of and some of the numerous people that need to be thanked, both in staff, subcontractors, partners, and what have you. So.
you're gone, after we break up, after you're gone, you sure gonna wake up. You gonna find that you were blind to let somebody come around and change your mind. After the years we've been together, through joy and tears, all kind of weather. Someday, blue and downhearted, you wanna be with me.
Voilà, thanks to all. So before, obviously, we give the floor to Stevie Davignon, we wanted to give you some food for thought, of course, to start with. So I want to pass on the microphone, first of all, to one of our young leaders, and I'm very proud to say also one of our supporting partners, Lindsay Nefesh-Clark, who's the founder and managing director of W4, which is an award-winning international organization promoting girls' and women's empowerment through information and communication technologies, which I think is Sustainable Development Goal 5B. Lindsay, over to you.
Thank you very much. May I first of all invite everybody to move around. We have a lot of space here. Please, please don't be shy. Please, please, everybody move around. And if I may ask you just to clear the screen because we have our remote participants in the room with us. Welcome. Ian?
Where should I stand?
Shada. I'm here, Shada. Yes, okay. Great.
I think they...
Okay, I would like to thank Gaët, Mr. Davignon, and the entire teams of Friends of Europe and Town Hall Europe. It's a privilege for me to be able to moderate this evening's discussion, and I would like to say kudos for choosing to focus on the occasion of the inauguration of the Davignon Center for New Leadership on the subject of gender equity and women's leadership, arguably one of the most important megatrends of the 21st century, and it promises to be a game changer. I'd like to introduce two eminent thinkers and speakers on stage with me. We have Shada Islam of Friends of Europe, and we have the renowned scientist and behavioral scientist Ian Cousin on my right. Welcome. Welcome to our remote participants. Wow, that's impressive. Welcome. And I recognize all of them because here we have our European young leaders joining us in the room. For the sake of brevity, from here on, I will be using the abbreviation EYLs, European Young Leaders. Welcome. And we have you, because you are experts. This is a room of experts, and as Gaët has said, the goal of the Davignon Center for New Leadership is to promote a collaborative exchange of ideas and, above all, collaborative action to drive progress. So we encourage you to contribute. Please make your comments as concise as possible. We would like a rapid-fire discussion. So let's get started. Let's have on the subject of how women can reshape the 21st century. Wim, may we have the first question? So we are going to be conducting a kind of mini poll. What is most at stake as far as promoting women's leadership is concerned? And there you have a list. And I would like our EYLs already to choose their letter, their priority. If we could see, what do you consider is most important out of these choices? And we have economic prosperity, sustainable development. That's in our post-growth era, environmental protection, climate change, defense of human rights, bearing in mind that right here in Europe, Vera Jourova says, nous avons un problème en Europe. Il s'agit des droits de l'homme. Il s'agit des droits de femmes. One woman out of every 3 women in Europe over the age of 15 suffered physical or sexual violence in her lifetime. That is not good enough. Global security, counter-extremism, terrorism. It's a question of equity and moral imperative. Shada, I'm going to bring you into the discussion straight away while we're letting our EYLs think about this. What do you think is at stake?
Well, everything. everything. You cannot, no, seriously, guys, you cannot engage on any of these issues without women's leadership, women's active participation. One thing is missing, is Agenda 2030, and I'm wearing a badge which says we is she is we. And that means that we're all part of Agenda 2030, and that's important for women and men.
Excellent. And actually, we're getting a lot of A's. I have to look over here at the EYLs. Predominantly A's, it seems. Predominantly A's, absolutely predominantly A's. Could we argue that prosperity, we could, have security, peace and security subsumed in prosperity? Thank you, EYLs. I would also add nuclear stability. Let's move on to a next question, please. The EU needs a more feminist foreign policy. Agree, disagree. Let's have the EYLs give their answer. In the meantime, agree, disagree? Agree. It sounds like agree, no-brainer. Agree. Shada, what do you have to say about a more feminist foreign policy?
I actually disagree.
Woo!
I disagree because I don't like that label. I think we need a cooperative, collaborative, ethical foreign policy. And that is the key, not a feminist foreign policy. We need all to be ethical and respectful with each other. Collaboration, not zero-sum games.
Okay, but if we're defining it as putting gender equality at the heart of foreign policy, and we have the examples of Sweden under the leadership of Margot Wallström, we have Canada with its feminist international assistance program. Yes, Canada, hi.
Hi, Canada.
Hi, Canada. And also, when you consider we have a body of evidence that shows that greater gender diversity is associated with a lower propensity for violence, conflict between countries and within countries. Let's maybe continue. Now, yes, hey, what would we have expected? They all agree. That's why you're EYLs. Continuing now, something linked to this, I would like to bring Ian in here, and I would like to just mention something. I don't know if any of you read this article, which is, the title is, How a Feminist Foreign Policy Can Save Us from Nuclear Weapons. And it was written by Beatrice Fien, who is the executive director of ICAN, the Nobel Prize-winning campaign. It's the international campaign for the abolition of nuclear weapons. And she says in her article, I'm going to paraphrase, but she says, the survival of the human species depends on women wresting power from men. We've left foreign policy for far too long in the hands of just a small group of men, and we need to change this. Then she says something that I think is very interesting. And she says, it's not a question of putting this planet-destroying firepower into the hands of women. It's a question of changing the system. And at this point, Ian, I would love Ian to talk about your work, your research on effective decision-making, collective behavior, and as greater degrees of gender diversity play into that.
Thank you very much. So we're all used to thinking about decision-making. We all make decisions. Every moment of our lives, we're thinking about decisions. And since 1904, since Spearman came up with the intelligence quotient, we've been focused on individual decision-making. But think about yourselves. How many decisions do you make with respect to your family, with respect to your job, that are really in isolation? Well, none of them. It depends on interactions with others, previous history of interactions with others. It's always social. And yet, surprisingly, the science of social decision-making is only now beginning to become studied. We're only now beginning to get the science behind group decision-making. And so, what have we, not just my group, but other groups as well, what have we discovered so far? Well, it turns out that when groups make decisions, there is something that's really related to the collective intelligence. So, for example, a group making a decision is typically not correlated with the maximum IQ of the individuals in the group. It's typically not correlated with the average IQ of the members of the group. What it's very strongly correlated with, and this is across knowledge domains and across a wide variety of tasks, what it's associated with is the network structure, the social network structure. What do I mean by that? Well, it's about the communication between the members of the group or the team. And groups that have more egalitarian communication are groups that are not dominated by one or two individuals, that communicate in a fair exchange, in turn-taking. these groups perform way, way better than other groups in a wide range of circumstances. Now you may ask, well, how can we encourage groups to behave in this way? Well, one of the strongest correlates with this is if you increase the proportion of women in a group, collective intelligence consistently goes up. This is true of face-to-face interactions. This is true of online interactions. I think this is very, very important because we are making decisions together all the time. We should not think about leaders as being some sort of figurehead that's not connected to others, that dominates others, that passes commands to others. We should think about group decision making.
Excellent. I mean, I kind of want to say thank you. And I also want to say hello. So when we come to gender parity in politics, one of the bright spots, okay, here we are in the era of authoritarian strong men. One of the bright spots is the historic political victories for women. And as we try to survive the tragedy of Trump at the moment, we do have an all-time, the highest in history, the number of women in Congress, somewhere around 25%. 2018 was hailed the year of the woman, and that was thanks to these historic political victories for women, with numbers of women vying for political office, winning seats at the table. We have these great examples like Rwanda and Ethiopia, and we have Mexico, gender equal cabinets. Obviously, Trudeau set social media on fire with his "It's 2015." I mean, please, back to Canada. And we have these numbers of women, incredible numbers of women in places in countries like Lebanon and Sri Lanka. And yet, here in Europe, we have these abysmal headlines about the persistent glass ceiling when it comes to gender parity in politics. Shada, I'd like to bring you back in, if I may.
Right.
Shouldn't we be doing better on this? What should we be doing about this?
So, you know what, Lindsay? It's glass ceiling, but sticky floors as well, okay? So we're stuck. And with the European Parliament elections round the corner, that is where we have to make sure that political parties, political leaders include more women and more ethnic diversity in the list they put up. That is very important. Because if we don't do that, guys, if we don't do that, you know, we have populists lurking in every corner of Europe, ready to pounce, and some have pounced. So if we want to have elections and we want democracy and resilience in Europe, diversity is the issue and gender parity is the issue as well.
Yeah, that's...
and we're not doing that good.
And we're not. We have work to do. That's why we're here. Thank you. Can we have maybe somebody coming in from the audience on this subject? Oh, yes, great. Dharmendra, do we have a microphone?
I'm behind you. 1 second.
Wonderful.
Okay, there we go. Can you say who you are?
Sure. Good evening. I'm a candidate. I'm running for office for the member of the European Parliament. I represent, or I'm standing on behalf of a pan-European party called Volt. You may or may not have heard of it. What I face as a challenge myself and my colleagues, today I was discussing with colleagues from the Greens, or let's say small underrepresented parties, is that there is actually no support networks for newcomers, for young candidates, not in terms of age, but in terms of political newcomers from small parties, underrepresented parties, parties that aren't present in the political landscape or are not a member of a European family. So I've been trying to identify any either female or beyond networks that would support, yes, candidates. In this case, in our case today, female candidates running for office. And I haven't been able to do so, and my colleagues shared my experience.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us.
May I approach one?
Yes, please. Let's do it.
Because we've got a number of political giants,
Yes.
or beasts in the audience, and I'm going to approach one of them, actually. And, sir, I'm going to surprise you. Mario
Excellent.
Monti's here. So, what you've heard, you've just heard a young woman saying she wants political mentoring. Would you be up for that?
Of course.
So you have someone, ex-prime minister. So no, in terms of the parity issue, give us a sense of what do you think needs to be done.
I would love to see gender parity established, even without the slight overexcitement that always surrounds this point on the agenda. However, I think this evening it's good to have this overexcitement. It's so obvious that the more concrete communication skills that women do have, the lesser willingness to fight on futile aspects in a collective decision-making, unless it is strictly among themselves, are important elements of value added for, as was said with scientific height, optimal, or at least better, social decision-making. So, what does it mean to be mentor in this? Which I have accepted at any rate.
I will explain later, because we haven't got time. But I am counting on you and others who could potentially create a network across Europe to actually mentor and shadow lots of women candidates.
Dharmendra, may we bring in somebody else? I just wanted to say, Mr. Monti, won't it be wonderful when we don't even need to discuss this anymore? Okay, could we bring somebody else in?
A young lady from here. Would you like to come in?
You've got the mic.
Okay. I was here last night. My name is Cassandra. I'm from Euro. And in terms of gender parity within the political system, well, of course, it's hard to refute that statement. I do believe that we have a lot to offer, and being a young woman in politics, I believe that representation, as Shada mentioned, is very important. It also encourages more women to get into politics when they see that we can succeed and that we can achieve and that we have something to add. Well, I'm already in politics. I've already tipped. But as I said, representation, as it's been said, representation, and not just women, but women of color, women with disabilities, women of the LGBTQ plus community. We all need to be represented because we all have different perspectives and viewpoints that are valuable and ought to be valued.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can we move on to the next question, please? Governments and business urgently being the operative word, need to invest more to prepare women for the volatile world of work. Agree or disagree? EYLs. Okay, so agree. Maybe we can bring an EYL in here at this point. Let's see. Eduardo, would you be able to share with us why you agree?
Hello, everybody. First of all, it's nice to be here and see so many familiar faces, both in the room and on the screens. Well, in the very first question regarding what was the main impact that women could bring, I answered the first question in like improving the economy and the overall stability and. Therefore, I think that involving more women, both in government and business, can be only beneficial. At the moment, I would say that there is probably more attention to bringing women into politics than in business. Probably business, since they are private sector, they are not that much under, let's say, the light of this type of new policies. But I truly believe that it will strongly improve the decision making. And we already seen there are plenty of very successful business women that are doing extremely great into creating new innovation and finding new solutions. So that's why I guess there is probably a need, because if we can improve, let's say, these two aspects, I guess you can also have a wide and large spillover effect into other sectors.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Eduardo.
We have another European young leader. Desperate, but I know what you're like when you get the mic. Has to be 60 seconds.
60 seconds. Formally young. Can I just criticize the question, which is, why do we talk about preparing women? Isn't the problem that we all are not really prepared? Men are not prepared. And if we only prepare women, well, they're going to encounter the same blockheads that have been there all the time, and it won't change.
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe 2 points that I would like to make is one, we do have now, it gets a little bit demoralizing to keep repeating. We have decades of evidence of the correlation between women's participation in the labor force, greater gender diversity, women's leadership, and multidimensional dividends. Vast economic gains, as you know, you've probably heard the headlines. It's like, trillions and trillions. And then the wider development gains. And it's incontestable evidence. All levels, micro, macro, and across all sectors. When it comes to women, preparing women for the world of work, maybe a dimension I'd like to add at this point, which will also help to answer the question, because we have work to do to get more women into the world of work to start with, and then obviously everybody's familiar with the pyramid shape of women's leadership. I think today in Europe, it's 5% of the CEOs of the largest companies in Europe are women. Think about that for a second. Okay, and then take in the digital transformation. We're in a world of a digital divide that risks becoming a chasm and a widening digital gender divide. And this is as we undergo the 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution. So maybe this is a good point to bring in somebody who works in the tech sector who may want to answer that question with this dimension of digital, talking about women. This is not just an issue to do with, okay, in Europe we have 76% of the population with access to the net, and in Africa, on average, 26%. In Africa, for women, 12% on average for women. This is right here on our doorstep in Europe. Jamila, would you mind coming in on this question, since you are a trailblazing woman in tech? Unmute, Jamila. Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Cool. Well, first of all, congratulations on the launch of the town hall. It's good to see you all again from Amsterdam. I am not in tech, but during my year as Dutch Women's Representative to the United Nations, we focused on the changing world of work. And I think the biggest reason to make work of the changing world of work is that we're missing out on so much talent and so much energy, and especially so much empathy. And this world needs a bit more empathy than we are seeing right now today. So unfortunately, I can't answer your question from a tech perspective, but from a work perspective and an economic perspective, I think we can all conclude that we should be a little bit ashamed of ourselves that we still haven't figured out how to get that gender equality rolling.
Excellent.
So I hope this town hall can start the snowball effect.
Thank you, Jamila. Would somebody in the audience like to come in on the subject of women in tech? Just raise your hand. Is there somebody in women in tech? Otherwise, we will move.
I can perhaps comment on something
yes,
related
please.
to this. I mean, it's well worth bearing in mind that the first programmer was a woman, Ada Lovelace. And
Yes.
this is a social construct. It was only until the 80s the vast majority of programmers were women. If you go to computer science departments in the early days, they were predominantly women. This is a social construct. This is not something normal or natural, and we need to bear that in mind.
Absolutely, thank you. Let's move on to the next question. Men are doing enough to promote gender equity and female leadership, true, false? From the EYLs, what's the answer? From the room. The men in the room are excluded, by the way. What's in for the room? Do we say true or false? False, yeah. I'd like to set a challenge and invite you all to think of 10 vocal men's champions of gender equity, women's rights. Obviously, outside of the usual ones we think of. And if you can think of that before midnight, then you win a prize. So that's like 10 out of, we said 7.7 billion.
Yeah.
What percentage is that, Ian?
It's a very, very small
Yeah, it's a small percentage.
Officially a small percentage.
We don't think you're going to get to 10. We're not including the rumor. Please go ahead.
So here you go. Say who you are.
My name is Patricia Riley. I work with Commissioner Navracic in the European Commission. I'm his Deputy Head of Cabinet. And gender equality is one of those issues that I'm really passionate about. I was involved in getting gender mainstreamed in Horizon 2020, the current European Research and Innovation Programme. My answer to that is false, obviously, but I would also say that women are not doing enough to promote gender equality in leadership. Society is not doing enough. And I think, you know, paraphrasing Madeleine Albright with her special place in hell, which was cheerfully picked up by President Tusk a couple of weeks ago. I think it's incredibly important that we support each other as well as just the men.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of blame. In other words, is the point. I think it's a societal challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next question, please. I think we're soon to close. Can we have the next question, Wim? If you are optimistic about the future of gender parity in leadership, raise your hand. EYLs, the room. EYLs, oh, the EYLs, not so optimistic. Okay, Shada.
I'm cautiously optimistic. There are 130 million girls that are not in school around the world. And who's stopping that? Governments. Not enough regulation, not enough leadership to get the girls in school. So if they're not in school, then they're not going to be empowered women. There's a pushback, Lindsay. There's a big pushback against female empowerment across the world. Here in Europe, perhaps not that much, but believe me, elsewhere, at our doorstep, governments are not doing enough, women are not doing enough, and I think that's absolutely right, business is not doing enough. And families are still stuck in slightly orthodox traditions or use religion as an excuse not to empower women and girls. So I'm cautiously optimistic. A lot of work
Can I take a
still
pulse
needs to be
check?
done.
Yes, please.
From
Thank you, Shada.
here, the behind. Don't run away from me, for goodness sake. Come close. Okay, you're definitely not going to speak to me, are you? Are you optimistic?
I think I'm cautiously optimistic, like Shada. I'm hopeful, as I was just saying with Rick there. I think there's a lot of movement. I'm from the Canadian mission, and so certainly, you know, seeing what we've done within our own government and the move and the difference that has made, I am cautiously optimistic and hopeful, but there's a lot of work still to be done.
Okay, one more.
Oh no, I knew you were coming to me. Well, Francesca Spitagliari, I'm Senior Fellow for Cyber Leadership back in the United States. I would concur with my colleagues. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. I think the fact that we're having this discussion means that it's an important issue, although at the same time we shouldn't be having this discussion if we were really making progress. I would also concur with Mr. Monti that maybe less flair and let's focus on the real issues, maybe not so much feminism, but just like we need more diversity, which is also women, young people, others. To solve complex issues, we need different backgrounds and different type of people. So let's focus on the real issues and maybe narrow down the things that we need to discuss. And I don't know, sometimes a lot of flavors, a lot of adjectives kind of get lost in space and you don't know what you're actually trying to address and what you're trying to solve. And since I'm an outcome-focused person, I try to focus on the real issues and think in an outcome way, what can we do to move forward? I think we all agree here that there is an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have the last slide, please? What would be different if more women held leadership positions? One word. EYLs. And Dom Mentor, maybe you can, and including Mario Monti. I know. Okay, what do we have over here? Everything. Outcomes. There you go. You have your outcomes. Less ego, more empathy. Productivity. Innovation. Results. Encourage diversity, give hope. Excellent. Dharmendra?
I'm here. I'm going to pick on another big beast over here, unsuspecting, one of them.
Real
Very
democracy.
Jamie.
One word. Say who you are.
I'm Jamie Shea, ex-NATO and now fellow here at Friends of Europe.
One word.
One word, more in-depth perspective. Sorry, but we bureaucrats can never summarize anything in one word.
Shame, Jamie. 3 words.
Okay, 1 second. One word.
I would agree with Angela. Everything.
Here you go. One word.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. And as you said, Mr. Monti, I am coming to you. One word.
Sorry, I was late. Sustainability was my answer.
Okay, okay. Let's
Excellent.
go to our president, actually.
Yes.
What's the one word that you would use, Etienne?
Marvelous.
You are marvelous. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Then up we have a word. Yes, please.
There we go. Again, say who you are.
In this 90% white room, I think gender is about white men and white women. I would stress again, it's also about other diversity.
Yeah.
Do we not call that color?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Diversity. And I would say prosperity, and I would subsume under prosperity, peace and security. And just to close, I would like to share the words of Margot Wallström, who said, I'm confident that history is on our side. I'm confident that gender equity is one of the issues of our time by which future generations will judge us as leaders, politicians, and citizens. I'm optimistic, stubbornly optimistic. Cheryl Wudon, who co-authored a book called Half the Sky, Transforming Oppression into Opportunity for Women Worldwide, said, this isn't rocket science. This is not a problem that is unsolvable, that we need to invent something new. It just takes political will. And I share the conviction that it takes political will, and a source of hope and courage, I hope, is the fact that we're here this evening, and we know that this is going to be one of the key actions of the Davignon Center for New Leadership. And I hope this has been insightful, despite the brevity of the session, and that it will galvanize us all into more collaborative action together. So thank you for being here. Thank you to our participants. Thank you to our EYLs. Thank you to Gayat, to Mr. Davignon, to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Shara. You all know Paul-Henri Spaak, one of the founding fathers of the EU, who, by the way, which in light of Brexit has always been an interesting comment, I find, who said in the 50s already that you have two kinds of European countries. You have small countries, and you have those who don't realize yet that they're small. Anyway, the chief of staff at the age of 28 of Paul-Henri Spaak is this gentleman, Stevie Davignon, that we're very proud to work with him. We're not going to list his CV, it's impressive enough, but the most important thing why we wanted to kind of pay tribute when launching this leadership center is because of the leadership skills that in the various dimensions of his life he has shown and demonstrated. His pragmatism, his will to try and inspire people, find consensus, etc. So he is admired and consulted by the great and the good, I have to say, and he has a very nice sense of climax building, I have to say. I remember a day when he had a meeting with the Belgian Prime Minister, then he had lunch with the Commission President Juncker, and then he saw me in the end. So he's kind of, I know it's a great climax. But besides that kind of the great and the good, he also is somebody who's always been inspired by talking to young people, talking to students, talking to taxi drivers to know what's happening, etc. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Stevie Davignon.
Good evening, and I think the debate we just had is a good sense of what is going to come over the years to come. But I'm going to use a nice British tradition and tell you a story which has nothing to do with anything we've been talking about and will talk about. And this is the story of a gentleman who decides that he wants to go and see a movie, and he goes to the cinema and he sits down. And he's a little surprised by sitting next to him is an enormous dog. And sitting next to the dog is the owner of the dog. So he's a little uncomfortable, there's no other place to go, so he stays. The movie starts, and as the movie goes on, the dog shows more and more appreciation. Reacts properly, laughs when he should laugh, is worried when he shouldn't be worried, full of suspense. And at the end of the movie, he turns to the owner and he said, you know, this is the surprise of my life. I've never seen a dog participate and liking a movie. And the owner said, I was surprised too. He didn't like the book. So, back to more serious things. The first thing I would like to say is that this venue is a little like the story of Europe. At one moment in time, totally unreal, absurd to believe that it could happen, and it did. And that is thanks to one gentleman here and his team. He decided that what was impossible was possible, and we pretended to believe him, and he was right. So, bravo. There is a little a contradiction in terms. To go put my name and new leadership, there's a kind of contradiction. But I'm happy to live with it. Doesn't bother me, and I hope it won't bother anybody. But it is really essential that we find and return to believe. If we don't believe, we are not going to do anything. And we have to believe that what is complicated is possible, and that we must forget to use the too easy alibi. We know what we should do, but we can't do it because the others don't agree. To hell with the others. We must stand by our position, fight for them, and we will get there. And in that context, I would like to say, which was a total surprise for me to have so many of the friends who influenced me over the years here, Mario Monti, Pascal Lamy, Frans van Daal, people with which it was not only interesting to work, but fun to work. So thank you for being here, and thank you for what you've done. Now the future, really the word is debate. One doesn't debate anymore. There is affirmations on one side, contradictions on the other side, but you never speak about the issue. You say that somebody who doesn't agree with you is just stupid, and the other person says that you're more stupid than he is, and this is a quite interesting contest, because there's no judge, and the end of the story is that both are stupid, which is a kind of strange verdict. So, debate the issues, understand why you don't agree with one another, and you debate an issue in relation to the goal you want to attain. And that has disappeared. What is our goal? We had lovely discussion in relation to what we want to do, bring the young into this, and I'm very proud that two of my granddaughters are here, so I'm very stressed at what they're going to tell me afterwards, and I'm quite sure what they're going to tell me afterwards. So that's why I'm stressed. But it's important. Debate ideas. Find out what is the margin of maneuver to get things moving, and then move, and believe. And have sentiments. You can't build Europe if you don't love Europe. Love is not a stupid word. It is a commitment. And I'm sure that all of you, with all of us, will use this commitment. We will debate. We will make this place better, and we hope that we will make it better for all of you. So thank you for being here, and thank you for coming back.
There's a place I know where no one knows. It's not known. It's a necessary thing. It's a place I made. Found out what I made. The nights I stayed, counting stars and sing. Let it wash over me. Ready to lose my feet. Take me off to